Hello, welcome to Eat the Country. I'm Tom Radford and I am at the seaside. I do like to be beside the seaside. I absolutely love it. It's a glorious day, and if you can see behind me, that way, the Seven Sisters. So this is a beach called Cookmere Haven, and it's one of my favourite spots. It's one of the nearest beaches to London from where I live. It's still quite a drive down here. Absolutely fantastic. I mean, you know, I've got the place to myself because there's some very steep steps, which means that lots of annoying people don't want to come down here, which is good, which means I'm alone, pretty much. And what are we going to do? What am I doing here? What are you doing? Why are you like this? What are you doing here? Well, I've come here to make some films about sea life, sea foraging, and sea creatures. We're going to see what we can find. It's February. You know, foraging, there's still plenty. I mean, there are things about, harder to find, and some of them aren't in their sort of bloom or anything, so they're not particularly interesting looking at the moment. Whereas seaside, there's always seaweed, there's always sea creatures, there's always things to talk about and to forage. So today we're going to have a look at, well, the tide is going out, so we'll have a look at some seaweed. We'll have a look at some limpets. So do join me on a little jaunt by the seaside, and we'll see what we can find.
Eat the country. Eat it.
This is bladder rack. Why is it called bladder rack? Sounds like some sort of medieval torture device, doesn't it? Put him on the bladder rack. Make him pee out the truth. But it's not called that for that reason. He's got these little bladders on there. It's also known as popweed because you can actually pop them and they make a little popping sound. What are they for? Well, they're a flotation device, and they help it drift through doing seaweed-related activities. I'm not actually sure what seaweed-related activities are, but that's what it does. Is it edible? Absolutely. I tried cooking this before. I am not an expert. I'm not a chef, by the way. If anyone had thought I was a chef, I'm not. And I tried cooking this before, and I didn't have much luck. And it came out a bit like... The texture was a bit like something that you'd make seat belts out of, you know, or cargo nets. But it is very, very good for you. It's very, very healthy. It contains things like iodine. There's all sorts of things you can cook with seaweed. I know people that are very fond of this stuff, and I'm sure they'll tell you a lot more than me about how to prepare it. As far as I'm concerned, you cook it gently for a while, and it can be served as a sort of just a side vegetable. But it's amazing stuff. It's absolutely everywhere. I mean, coastlines around the UK, you're going to find this stuff all over the place. It's a great free food resource. I mean, seaweed is fantastic. It's eaten all over the world. You know, a lot of Asian food uses seaweed. There's a lot of medicines with seaweed. Apparently, there is something you can do. I typically wrote this down and didn't bring it with me, so I might need to look this up maybe and add a bit of a voiceover on a bit. But essentially, there's something you can do with this, which is good for your bottom. I don't know whether it gets things going or makes them feel better. I don't know whether you just shove a handful up there or you wipe your bum with it, or also doubles up as a handy toupee if you need one. Of course, I don't need one because I'm quite hirsute. Thank you very much. Thank you to my father's genes. I suppose you could mistake it for something like... I'm not going to say it. I had a rude thought. But this is YouTube and you can't say rude stuff on YouTube, so I'm not going to. Isn't that mature of me? Isn't that mature of me not to say that? Anyway, we won't go there. There it is. Bladder rack. Fantastic. Right, let's see what else we can find. Now, look at this. Limpets. This is a limpet. This particular limpet has a rather groovy accessory on here, which is sort of like a seaweed boa, which I'm sure that all the other limpets are very, very, very jealous of. Limpets, very common shellfish all over the coast of the UK. Little triangle-shaped shells, and then inside you have this sort of, well, I suppose it's its foot, isn't it, really? And they grip to the rock like all hell. If you want to get one of these off a rock, you have to basically just go straight in there and twist the knife, and they'll come off. If it's even slightly aware that you're there, you have a battle on your hands. They can be quite hard to get off. Now, are they edible? Yes, they are, absolutely. They can be quite tough though. So basically what you do with these, like any shellfish, you would soak them, etc. And then you would, well, you can boil them. You might need to boil them either for a very long time, or I mean, I was thinking about cooking them in some cider. Some people say cook them very quickly so they don't get too tough. Some people say cook them for a long time. But like calamari, you don't want to cook that for too long. Now, obviously, it hasn't quite got the same flavour as something like calamari or a mussel, but it is perfectly edible. I mean, you know, obviously, you wouldn't be in a survival situation in the UK, but if you were, this would definitely be something you would be eating. You can eat the whole creature, and the sort of gut sack on the back. To be honest with you, I've never been a big fan of that personally. One thing that these were great for, when I was a kid, I used to go to Cornwall on my holidays all the time, and we used to use these for bait. And the gut sack on the back of these is the best bait if you want to catch like blennies and wrasse and things like that, and rock pools. Absolutely fantastic. But yeah, the flesh. I mean, I'm actually going to try, as I say, with a lot of things I can't really do them at the moment. But in the spring or the summer, I'm definitely going to try and cook with these because I've always been very curious. I've never actually eaten them myself, and friends of mine have said that they're very good. But also, don't be too alarmed about this chap because I've taken off the rock. But when I put him back on the rock, he will be absolutely fine. I know it's a he because the male limpets are slightly darker and slightly smaller. The female ones tend to be the really big ones. But there it is, rather unusual. I don't know why it's called a limpet, because obviously it doesn't have any legs, so it's not doing any limping, and it isn't very limp. I can tell you, when these things are stuck into a rock, they are really quite firm and strong. Like everything, if you're going to try something like this, everything in moderation, but, you know, a food resource, perfectly edible. You know, all the usual good things that come with seafood. Just follow the usual rules. Don't pick them in a built-up area because of what you might be in the water and pollutants, etc. Soak them overnight, and obviously don't eat any shellfish if it appears to be dead. Right, you've been on television. I can put you back on a rock now. What have we here? This is sea lettuce. It's extremely common, perfectly edible. It's not rare, so don't worry about taking, you know, enough for your lunch. I mean, don't overdo it, obviously. I mean, it's not an especially imaginative name, is it? Oh, look, it's green. Let's call it sea lettuce. Because nothing else is green, obviously, only lettuce. And I mean, it doesn't really look like lettuce. It's not really a salad vegetable. You know, I think if you put this on a ham sandwich, you might get a bit of a surprise. Now, does it taste like lettuce? Well, all right. In my opinion, it's like eating packing tape. But I'm sure when properly prepared, apparently the way to eat this is raw, just chopped up with a little bit of like soy sauce and vinegar, something like that, you know, sort of Chinese style. But deep fry some of this and there's a whole different thing. Deep fried seaweed, absolutely fantastic, with some spices, with some brown sugar, whatever. However, I do quite like this idea of eating it raw Asian style, so I think I'm going to give that a go. It is, again, extremely prolific. It is extremely common in this country. But anyway, it's absolutely everywhere here. It's free food, folks. It's free food. What have we here? What do you think that is? Look at that tiny little thing. It's called a periwinkle. Sounds a little bit like something that happens to a gentleman when he's in rather cold water. Oh, apologise for that. It is a tiny little sea snail. And when I say tiny, I mean it is edible, but you'd have to eat quite a few of these to even get close to being full. And what does it taste like? Well, it's not as good, you know, it's not the same sort of flavour and texture as something like a mussel or a whelk or, you know, other sorts of sea shellfish. But, you know, it is perfectly edible. Some people really enjoy them. The thing with shellfish is to make sure that you soak them to get the sand and the grit out of them. I know it sounds a bit macabre, but don't eat a dead one. Eating dead shellfish is almost a guarantee of giving you an upset tummy. And also when you're picking shellfish, come somewhere like this. Come away from like built up areas. Don't pick one off a city pier because there's going to be all the kind of oomps and things floating about. You know, if you find a shellfish wrapped in a condom, I wouldn't recommend eating that. It is edible. The way to cook it, just like you would cook mull, probably boil or boil in stock, something like that. And then to get them out of the shell, there's something called the pin and the twist. So you put in the pin like that, and you like that, and out they come on their own. And I've actually done this with snails. I'm sure it's the same with periwinkles. All of the flesh is edible, except at the front there's sort of a hard place on the front, which will be a bit chewy and not very nice. So you just want to take that off. But other than that, and apparently very, you know, as a snack, certainly not going to fill you up, but as a snack, something like the same way you'd eat something like whelks with a bit of vinegar, you know, why not? They are incredibly common, so, you know, why not come and try some? As all things in nature, you know, don't be greedy, just take a few, enough for a snack to see what it's like. If you like shellfish though, you might well enjoy them. Well, thank you for joining me on the Seaside Safari. The country's Seaside Safari. I hope you enjoyed seeing some of those things. Maybe that some of this is like, oh, I knew that. You did. I knew that. You didn't have to tell me that. It's bloody obvious. Or it might be that you've learned something. I mean, either way, it suits me. And do let me know what you think. Do let me know what else you'd like to see on Eat the Country, and I will see what I can find. Obviously, fuel and funds allowing. You know, I might have a posh accent, but trust me, I'm not a wealthy man. But I do love doing this, and I love doing this. So any support, any comments, any ideas, I'm always up for it. The more of this I can do, the better. If I could make this my job, I mean, can you imagine? This is my job, just charging around doing this full time. That's the plan. Anyway, I'll leave you to your whatever it is you're doing. And if it's not a sunny day, I hope that these rays of sunshine brought a little bit of joy and happiness into your day. All right, see you later. See you next time. See you next time I end up wherever I end up.
Eat the country. Eat it.